South Africa's Cardinal Brislin was one of 133 cardinals from all over the world who got to experience something quite extraordinary, something that the majority of us will never see. They all sat in secret in the Vatican City, in the Sistine Chapel, surrounded by Rome, choosing the most powerful man in the Catholic Church, someone who's going to lead the 1.4 billion followers. After 2 days of conclave, the white smoke, we saw it going into the sky, and the new Pope was announced, Pope Leo XIV. What impact can he make on the Church and ultimately us all over the world and here in South Africa? And with all that pomp and ceremony and genuflection, is it anything less than a cult? So, Your Eminence, is it a cult?
No, definitely not. I think a cult is where people are taken into a particular system which is very secretive, where they receive brainwashing normally, and where they're not free to leave or to go where they want to go. And the Catholic Church is quite different. It is a matter of freedom. It's a matter of personal choice as to whether you're going to be Catholic or not. You are free to come and to go as you please. So it's not keeping people in any way enslaved.
It's not a cult. So why so much secrecy around so much of what happens, including voting for the Pope?
Well, I think certainly with the conclave, it's very, very important that the cardinals are cut off from the rest of the world. It was quite an experience for me, to be quite honest, to hand in my cell phone, not to have any access to a telephone or to any means of communication with the outside world. And why is it important is because there's so much influence that is coming from the media, from many people speculating, from stories that arise that some are true and some are not true. So when you are cut off from all of that, you can really just focus on what the point of you being there is, and that is to elect the new Pope.
And how did it feel being part of something so important for the Church?
Absolutely awe-inspiring, overwhelming in many respects. The mere fact of taking the oath of confidentiality was a very, very solemn moment, and you just feel that this is a moment that is going to change the course of history in many ways, not only for the Catholic Church, but also for the world, because the Pope is a world leader in many respects. And I've said it before, but I think the part that really hit me was when we had gone into conclave, there were still people, administrators, people helping us, and quite a lot of activity in the Sistine Chapel. And then the order came extra omnes, everybody else out. And everybody went out and those doors closed and you heard them closed and you said, wow, this is the moment.
Sure.
Yes.
This is serious.
This is serious.
And in voting for the Pope, I mean, 2 days, that's quick.
That's quick.
What was it about him that people saw in him? What was it that you saw in him that would make him a good Pope?
You know, it's quite remarkable how it happened, because he wasn't a cardinal spoken about much before the conclave.
That's right.
And in the conclave, we don't really speak about these things. You just vote. You're given a list of the possible, the cardinals who are in the conclave, and normally the new Pope will come from that list. And so obviously there are different people who get voted for and a different number of votes. But it was quite remarkable to see how his name just emerged over the 3 ballots before the 4th ballot. And it just came out, if you like, just came out. And I didn't know him very well, but during the general congregations, I'd taken notes of what everybody had said. And I went back to those notes to read what he had said. And as that name came forward, you could see that somehow he just ticked all the boxes. A person from the first world, America, born, Chicago, got that experience. He was a missionary in Latin America, in Peru, has Peruvian citizenship, became a bishop in Peru. He's got experience then of the developing world. He's been working in the Curia in Rome, so he has that experience as well. And it all just seemed to come together.
How important, I mean, I know you've been quite outspoken about the previous Pope,
Yes.
that he was abused, the way he was treated.
Yes.
What should the new Pope take from Pope Francis? What do you think he should do to carve his own niche?
Look, I think first and foremost, he should be his own person. He mustn't try to be like Pope Francis. And, that I think would just be a disaster. He's got to be the person he is. But I think what he will try to take from Pope Francis is the whole emphasis on mercy, on forgiveness, on accompanying people, not abandoning people in their struggles, trying to walk with people, journey together with people. And I think that those are the type of things that he will take from Pope Francis.
Did you at any stage during the conclave think, it could be me?
Well, you do think that, at least theoretically, and your heart falls a little bit when you think that, because one thing I can tell you that once he was elected Pope, his whole life changed.
Yes.
Anything he had planned for the future, anything he was thinking of, was off the table now.
It's a job for life.
It's a job for life, and in many ways no longer his own person. I mean, from there he was led out and he had to go through all the rituals. So I've been joking a little bit that 133 cardinals went in and 132 came out smiling because they weren't elected. Yes. Yeah.
I should imagine there must have been that little frisson of, what if it's me?
Indeed.
Yeah.
What will I do? Will I freeze? Will I? Yes, yeah, exactly.
The former Pope was very political. We know that he phoned the church in Gaza every single day.
Absolutely.
How important is it to keep that conversation, considering what is happening there in the Middle East? And where does this leave the church?
Look, I think, for Pope Francis and for previous popes and now certainly for Pope Leo XIV, peace is very important. I mean, we believe in respect for life and the dignity of human beings. And when you have conflict, when you have war, that's destructive. It's destroying human life. And I think that while many people would see Pope Francis as being political, I think his motivation was to say, we must work for peace.
Right.
And we must try to find ways of dialogue, of sorting out problems without killing each other, without maiming people, without destroying infrastructure and so on. And it was very interesting that the first words that Pope Leo XIV spoke were peace be with you. And he spoke about peace and about unity. And I think that he will certainly try to continue that of Pope Francis, of trying to be a bridge builder. I mean, the very word pontiff is a bridge builder. I mean, a pontiff is a bridge. So the Pope is meant to be a bridge builder. And it's not a matter about taking sides or whatever. It's about saying, how can we find peace that is based on justice and ensuring the dignity of human life?
And I guess that underpins his step towards the Chinese?
Yes, it would underpin the step towards the Chinese. And of course, while we focus very much on Gaza, and this is, of course, a very cruel and destructive war, we mustn't forget places like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of the Congo and all the other places of conflict, including Ukraine, of course. All these places, there's so much conflict in the world, and we've got to try to find ways to make peace.
So the church has a decade-old problem with abuse.
Yes.
And child abuse in particular. Yes. It's been going on for a long time. I think the former Pope started a commission in 2014, also done in secrecy. What is the problem there?
I think that dioceses like Johannesburg, Cape Town and so on have got processes in place at least, that if there is a report of child abuse, historical or current, that process kicks in. It is separated from the leadership of the church. It is done independently, and hopefully justice will be done to the victim, to the survivor, and that proper steps will be taken. I think the age of covers up, are far less likely now. And I think that was the biggest scandal of the past. The abuse was obviously terrible and destructive of young people, but it was very, very scandalous that so many of these cases were actually covered up by the leadership. And I think enormous steps have been taken to prevent that now from happening. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but I think that processes are in place for that now.
Many of the perpetrators were either looked after or they were moved to somewhere else.
Precisely.
Does that suggest that there is a feeling in the church that this is okay?
Well, I think in the past, what happened is that many of these priests who might have abused were sent away to therapy, if you like. There were institutions for therapy. And to be fair, in the past, very often they would get a report to say, well, okay, the guy's reformed. I mean, he's seen the error of his ways. He's fit for ministry once again. So we're put into another parish. Of course, now we realize that such abusers cannot just be changed like that. So I think that, that is the most important thing, is that if somebody has abused now, they would not get another appointment. That would at least put them in contact with children.
And what do you think attracts them to the church? Is it the fact that often they're dealing with vulnerable people who might be easier to prey on? Is the vow of celibacy linked to this in any way?
Well, I think if you look at abuse in general, it's not really connected with celibacy, is it? Because primarily abuse takes place in the family, with a father, an uncle, or whatever. That is the most common place of abuse, I think. So I don't think it's particularly connected with celibacy. What could attract a person to the church, I suppose, what it makes it easier for an abuse in the church is that you are dealing with vulnerable people, and you can recognize the vulnerability. And of course, very importantly, is that priests are trusted. And parents were absolutely delighted if their sons or daughters were going out with the priest. They thought they were safe. Now, of course, we realize that in most cases they are safe, but there were the abusers who took advantage of that situation.
This vow of celibacy.
Yes.
Okay, I know it's understanding, it's your connection with God, but I mean, is it anachronistic to still be living in this world when actually, sexual relations with people, you can't even masturbate? I mean, is that natural to be in that state?
Look, I think marriage is natural. Marriage is a primarily calling. Priests and religious sisters, religious men take the vow of celibacy in order to be at the total service of God and to be a sign of the kingdom of God, that in fact the most important thing in life is God and is the kingdom of God. And priests and religious sisters and brothers give their lives in the service of God and his kingdom in order to give total dedication. If you're married, your primary responsibility is to your husband or your wife and to your children and to your family. That is your primary responsibility. As a priest, because I take the vow of celibacy, my primary responsibility is to my priesthood and is to ministering to people. It's not a natural thing, but it is something that we accept willingly in order to be of service pastorally to people.
I mean, is it hard? Does it drive you
Of course
crazy
it is hard.
sometimes?
No, of course celibacy is hard. I mean, it is not an easy vocation to have. But I think also if you see how the gospel has spread because of celibacy, people have been sent into very difficult and harsh situations that they couldn't have undertaken had they been married. And it is because of that we can talk about 1.4 billion Catholics today, I think. Yes.
When you sit in a confession box, what is it like? I mean, hearing people's secrets.
It's extraordinarily humbling. It really is humbling because people come in and they are extraordinarily honest. They open up completely, lay their souls bare, if you like, in the presence of a priest. So it is extraordinarily humbling for a priest to listen to confessions. And while people might have a bad experience in a confessional, for most people, I think priests are very merciful and who really try to reach out to encourage the penitent to heal, because it is really meant to be a sacrament of healing, and to say that, look, whatever has happened in the past, you've made these mistakes, start again, begin again. You're not lost. God has not stopped loving you. You're still a child of God. Begin again and try to do better in the future.
When did you know that you had to work for God? I mean, what was it, an epiphany? And
I went to Catholic school, of course, and so we were taught by Christian brothers, and my parents, of course, were both practicing Catholic, both converts, as a matter of interest. And we used to pray together as a family, pray the rosary in the evening. During my time in school, from about standard 7, I suppose, as it was then, grade 9 now, I was thinking about being a priest, and I had that attraction towards priesthood. But when I got to matric, I was undecided. And so I decided to go off to university first, and I went off to UCT. and started a degree in psychology. And it was while I was at UCT that I decided, no, I really believe that this is my vocation. And so I started seminary training after that and continued my degree through UNISA.
Do you enjoy it?
Seminary training or the degree?
Your job now, I mean, working for God, working in this world.
Look, I've been a priest, what is it now, for 40-something years, and I really do not regret becoming a priest. I enjoy it. It hasn't always been easy. There are hard times. You know, working with people is not easy, but we get enormous support from the congregations that we serve. I've very frequently said it to people that, in fact, I feel that I gain far more from their faith than they are gaining from my faith. People are extraordinarily good, and it's a great pleasure to be a priest and to be able to be with people at the most important times of their lives, when they get married, when they have their first child, when there's a death in the family. You're part and parcel of their lives. And I think that we can and do play a very supportive role and helping people to find meaning in what is happening in their lives.
It's difficult to know what the status is of the church. I mean, you hear that it's in crisis, mainly because of the abuse. In Africa, I think 20% is made up of Africans, of the 1.4 billion. In France, you've got people are being baptized. It's increased by 46%. The Anglican Church in the UK has almost collapsed, and Catholicism has taken off there. So what is the true picture?
Obviously, different scenarios in different countries. As you say, Africa, the Catholic Church and other churches of Christianity are thriving, and more and more people are being baptized. Much the same would be said of other Asian countries, Latin America. The church in the United States is very much alive too. You know, we often hear bad reports about conflict in the church and so on in the United States, but it's very much alive. And the reports that we're getting from Europe is that there is a resurgence. More people are being baptized, and they're coming into the church more as young adults rather than as infant baptisms, if you like. So there is something happening in that respect. Look, I think if you look at the history of the church has always been in crisis. I mean, there's always been something that's been happening, whether it's a war or the Crusades or whatever it is. There's always been challenges. So I think that this time is no different, but of course the abuse cases have been absolutely scandalous. And I mean, truly, truly a great tragedy for those who have been hurt by that.
So you see all that opulence at the Pope's funeral and choosing the new Pope, and you know it's tough at the coalface, right? Yes. I mean, priests, the pay is not great. How do you balance that message?
You see, the opulence of the Vatican is really in terms of the structures, the paintings. I mean, you can easily go into an office and they'll say, "Oh, that's a Raphael over there, by the way," you know. So we've got all that, which we don't really see as being valuable in monetary terms. I mean, it is the patrimony of the Catholic Church. The fact of the matter is that the Pope actually lives quite simply. I mean, there's no opulence in his lifestyle, but he's got everything he needs, but there's no opulence. So I think for ourselves, you know, to visit the Vatican, to visit St. Peter's, for example, is really connecting us with the whole 2,000-year tradition, because there's pretty good evidence that St. Peter is buried under the altar of St. Peter's. And I think it just connects us really to the time of the apostles and to Jesus himself.
Did you see that film Conclave?
I didn't actually. I've heard a lot about it, and I've met a number of people who have seen it. And
just wondering how many similarities there really are.
People have told me not too many similarities.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So these questions came from some people in the office and mainly some kids. How do you know God has called on you?
It's a matter, you know, that does take time. It's a matter of discernment, and you can never have 100% knowledge that God is calling you to this. Ultimately, it's always a risk, like entering into marriage, really. You feel the love, you feel the attraction, but you're never absolutely sure, are you, how things are going to work out. But you're willing to take the risk because you really believe you love this person. And I think it's very much the same with the call to priesthood or to religious life, that you feel drawn to it. And ultimately, you've got to come to a decision, am I going to take that risk and go into it? Sometimes it might not work out very well and you'll leave during your formation or something like that, but at least you've tried.
And what is the ultimate mission?
Well, our ultimate mission certainly is to proclaim Jesus Christ as being the Savior of the world, and that salvation comes through Jesus Christ. So the invitation is to become a follower, a disciple of Jesus Christ, and to live that way of life. But associated with that is that we understand that also we must be of service to humanity, and mostly particularly to those who are marginalized, those who are poor, those who are living in conditions of suffering or hardship.
And are you happy with the new Pope? Is he the right man to do the job?
Absolutely. I have no doubt about it.
Do you need to be a virgin to be a Pope, to be a cardinal?
No, I mean, it could easily happen, for example, that a person who was married and had 5 children, when their spouse passed away and they decided to become a priest and then was made a bishop and then became a cardinal, could potentially be a pope.
Could a woman potentially become a pope?
No. No, certainly not. It would be chosen from among baptized male Catholic. So you don't even have to be a cardinal or anything, but you can't be a woman. It is a
Why would it
baptized
never be
male
a
Catholic.
woman?
I think the fact of the matter is that looking at the life of Jesus, he challenged so much of the culture of his time, challenged so many of the beliefs of the time. But one thing he didn't challenge in choosing his disciples, he chose only men. And I think that that is the basis for our belief, that to be part of the group of disciples of priests or bishops, you would have to be a man.
What about a black pope, considering how strong Christianity is on the continent? Is it time? Is the Christian world ready for that?
It would be lovely. It would be absolutely lovely. We have had popes from Africa before, in antiquity, really. I think there have been 3 popes from Africa. But it would be lovely to have a pope now from Africa. That would certainly encourage us in Africa tremendously. But I think that when it comes to the actual voting, you don't look, is this person from Latin America or from the Western world or from Africa? You're looking at the person himself. So I think it would be lovely to have an African pope. It will happen, I'm quite sure.
Can you be gay and be a priest?
Yes. If you are committed to living a life of celibacy, and if you are prepared to accept the teachings of the Catholic Church, then you can certainly be a priest and be gay.
How political do you need to be as cardinal and a pope?
Well, I don't think we would like to be political as such. Now, political is a very broad term, isn't it? So I think we would never want to get into issues of party politics or supporting one particular party. That has happened in the history of the Church and in places. But I don't think we would want to get into that. But if you're looking at political in the sense of being concerned about the well-being of people, of course we must be involved. I mean, in order to live a dignified life, you need to be respected. There needs to be justice. There needs to be just laws. And just as we were critical of apartheid and opposed apartheid, people could interpret that as being political, but we saw it more as a matter of justice and of human dignity.
If you weren't a cardinal, what would you be? Would you be a surfer?
I'd love to be a surfer, but those days are long past. Look, I suppose I would have gone into something like psychology or counseling or something like that, yes.
Thank you very much.
That was an interesting question. That one came as a surprise there.
It just entered my head.
Okay, good.